A message for every Australian. Hello Australia, I'm sorry for my appearance, but as you listen to my message, you will understand why I've hidden my identity. The reasons why I've made this video is because this government system is ruining this country, and at our next election, we are really only being given a chance to vote for two people I consider to be dictators. And as I go along, I will explain why I feel that way. There are so many problems with this country, I'm finding it difficult to know where to start, so I guess I will go back to when I was a child and explain a few things to everyone. I remember when I was a kid I could ride my bike without wearing a helmet, but these days you can only not wear a helmet if you're Muslim, which makes me ask, is this Australia or Arabia? Why should these people get special treatment while Australians can be fined for the same thing? If these people want to live here, they need to abide by every law, not just the ones they choose to. Another thing, when I was younger, I was taught how to handle and use guns safely. From the age of 8 years old, I had my own air rifle, and by the time I was a teenager, I owned several different rifles, including semi-automatic rifles. Now, I used to practice shooting with my air rifle every day in my own yard, as I had targets set up, and I intended to try out for shooting at the Olympics when I was old enough. And mind you, I never needed a license to own these weapons back then. But then our government made guns illegal and made it almost impossible to get a license. And after applying and being rejected 3 times, I gave up applying for a license, but I never handed in my guns. Because I don't believe the government had the right to do this, I later in my life sold my guns to a collector who had a license, so that they wouldn't be destroyed. Now, getting to the reasons why our guns were taken away from us and what damage it has done to this country. The reason this was done was because of what Martin Bryant supposedly did in Tasmania. But this was all a setup, because the majority of the people shot on that day were not killed by the guns Martin Bryant had, but they were killed by the exact caliber rounds the police used on that day. And you only have to check the original coroner's report to see this. The reason why we lost our guns because of police killing innocent people, then blaming someone else for it. Now, since guns were taken away from people, a new type of crime started to appear, and every year it has got worse. Since that time, to the point there is at least 3 to 5 home invasions every day. Since we lost our guns, criminals are so brazen they will come into your house even while you are there, but this never happened before we lost our guns. And if people still had guns, criminals would not be so keen to enter someone's home if they thought they might get shot. But because they don't, the elderly are getting bashed and robbed in their own homes by the scum that this government has allowed to pour into our country. And it's about time we put a stop to it. Because it disgusts me to see what is happening to our elderly population. And on top of this, in the last few years, even younger people are starting to be attacked in their home. Your home is supposed to be your castle, and you should feel safe there. Yet most elderly people are becoming too scared to even leave their home. I believe everyone has the right to defend themselves against this scum, and the only way to do this is to allow people to own guns so that they have some way to protect themselves against these armed invaders. It is a known fact that where people can legally own guns, they have a lot less crime than places that don't allow their citizens to own guns. I will use this for an example. I once saw a documentary on 2 American towns where you must carry a sidearm at all times, and neither of these towns have had any major crime since bringing in the law. Now, only after a few months after introducing the law, some people from another town tried to rob the bank. In this town, and as soon as they drew their guns, the 30 or so customers and bank staff all drew their guns, and the robbers instantly gave up and were arrested, and nothing has happened there since. Just some food for thought. Now, I'm not saying every Australian should be walking around carrying a sidearm, but I do believe that everyone should have one in their home. Okay, that's enough about guns. So I'll move to my next point, which is showing how this country has become a dictatorship. Campbell Newman wants to make your children do Saturday detention, which shows you how stupid and clueless this man truly is. Saturday is when kids' sport takes place, and with the current child obesity problem, I see this as one of the dumbest things I've ever heard of. If it is not Saturday detention, he wants your kids to do community service, which is even more stupid, as people doing community service are doing it because they have committed a crime and received that instead of going to jail, or paying the fine. Paying the fine. But Campbell Newman wants to put your children in this situation. If these kids are doing things bad enough to warrant community service, why are they not being charged by police? Let's face it, you are being dictated to. Because it's not a suggestion, this is what he intends to do. He is telling you what is best for your children without any thought of what it may do to the children's mental health. And the fact he could be mixing your kids with criminals on community service projects. And I believe anyone who thinks this is a good idea should not have children. I would ask all Queenslanders to boycott this stupid law he is trying to put in place and never send your kid to a detention or service projects, as this is the only way we can stop them from forcing their beliefs upon us. My next problem is boat people, and I know I can stop the boat people from coming. I've had numerous ways to do this, but I can't tell you those because if I do decide to run for government, it will be one of my policies, and you will find out then. But I can stop them instantly. Julia Gillard has a $12 billion hole in her budget. And even though they won't admit to it, a big chunk of this is caused by boat people, as they cost Australians billions of dollars a year. The most disgusting thing is most poor Australians, and I'll explain what I mean. An Australian citizen on unemployment benefits will receive a maximum of $440 a fortnight, of which they have to buy food, pay rent and other bills. Yet illegal boat people are being housed in 4-star resorts for free of charge, and on top of this they get free medical and are being paid $435 a week to be here illegally, which means they are getting almost double what an Australian citizen can get. As well as this, they receive other benefits as well. I would put an end to all this, saving this country billions of dollars that could be used on health or schools. Julia Gillard has come across as a dictator numerous times, and you only have to look back to the Nova Peris incident, where Julia Gillard wanted to go around the voting system to put a politician in place and said, it's my way or the highway. And to me, that means a big fuck you to Australia. The person that she wanted to put into this position could not even string a few words together, which come across as a total joke to me. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for having an Aboriginal person in politics. I just believe they need to earn it, not have it given to them because of race, creed or colour. If you leave these types of people in power, you will end up with such a bad financial position that everything in this country will begin to fail. They will also remove more of your freedoms as well, and here is a few freedoms that we have lost in the last 20 years or so. The right to own semi-auto firearms, as well as the right to go for a drive at any time of night if you're on your P plates, the type of car you can own, the amount of people you can have in your car, the driving laws that they have changed so that they can confiscate and crush your car. You can't even say what you want anymore, because if you don't like someone that happens to be a different race to you, you're classed as a racist. And you can be charged and even jailed for saying how you feel. Whatever happened to freedom of speech? Julia Gillard even wanted to silence the media so that you would only see what news they wanted you to, which is already happening to a degree. But she wanted to make it much harsher, and in my opinion, that's a dictator. The worst thing about this is it is okay for the government to discriminate against people like gays with gay marriage, and there is nothing you can do about it. I can end this debate once and for all. The Catholic Church do not run this country or the world. If they can't accept gays, that is their problem. But I believe the way around this is to just change the name from a marriage ceremony to a commitment ceremony for gay couples, which is just the same, just not called marriage. And I believe this would make both sides happy. And if I run for Prime Minister, it is one of the policies I will put into place, because I believe they have the right to be treated like normal citizens just like everyone else. Now, Tony Abbott has no plan to do this, even though his own sister is gay, which shows you what sort of a heartless bastard this man really is. And if he had his way, gays would not exist, as he hates them a lot more than he lets on, and his eyes tell this story when he is asked about it. Another thing I intend to change, should I ever become Prime Minister, is the voting system in this country, as it is seriously flawed and corrupt. I'll tell you why. You have two parties that are separate parties until it comes to election time, and then the Liberals and Nationals join together because they know if they stand alone they could never win. This will not be allowed under my system. Every party would have to stand alone. The other thing I will change is the way voting is done. Currently you have to vote using a pencil. And the reason this is done is so your vote can be rubbed out and changed to put in power who they want there at the time. I would make the voting be done in ink, which can't be rubbed out and changed, so the Australians actually had in power who they voted for. I plead with every Australian to not vote at the next election unless they allow you to vote in pen. Now, I will tell you about a few of the changes I intend to make, but not how, as I do not want any of the current parties to steal my ideas and use them to get re-elected. But I know for a fact I can do what I say I can do, and unlike your current politicians, I won't lie to your face and then do the complete opposite. And here is a few of the major things I intend to do. Reduce the price of petrol to under $1 a litre. I will stop the import of cheap poor-grade fruit, vegetables and meat, which is putting Australian farmers out of business and costing tens of thousands of jobs in this country. There will be no increase to politicians' wages at all if I was Prime Minister, as I don't believe they are earning the money they get paid now. And if anything, I would reduce their wages. I don't believe we should be paying them to sit around in Canberra and argue like a bunch of spoiled brats, as it accomplishes nothing at all. I will introduce a Bill of Rights into Australia so that citizens know what their rights are instead of having no rights at all. This is the only non-third world country in the world that doesn't have a Bill of Rights. Even New Zealand has one. I will remove the restriction on people's medications they need so that they can live a full and happy life. I will stop the billions of dollars we give to other countries and look after Australians first, because it just ends up in corrupt politicians' pockets instead of helping their people. I will train Australian workers instead of bringing in overseas workers. I would fix the health system and education system, as well as bringing roads and highways to a modern standard. I would also remove the carbon and mining taxes, which only cost this country jobs and made the poor even poorer. I will upgrade the judicial system to make sure that people who commit any crimes are given punishment that fit the crime, and no one will be exempt, regardless of age, fame, wealth, creed, colour, or religious beliefs. I would put an end to the corruption in our police force and government. I would put an end to free travel to politicians not in power, as well as the free government cars they receive. They would be made use their own car like everyone else. This also applies to all politicians in power, except for the Prime Minister. That is just a few of the major things I would change, but there is a lot of smaller things I believe need changing too. But there is too many to list. Here is just one of the small ones to give you an idea. I would make anyone from overseas have to pass a licence test before being allowed to drive here. There would be no just swapping a licence over. I know that most people will be thinking, who is this person and how does he think he can do this? Well, I can tell you I'm a born and bred Australian who loves this country so much I can't sit back and let what is currently happening to this country continue. I'm an ex-serviceman and I understand what Australians need and want from their government. Unlike the current political parties, I can fund everything I have said I would do without increasing any taxes or making any new taxes. I would stop government's scare tactics and lies to do with climate change, and you can research this yourself, that the Earth has done this hundreds of times before. Climate change is real, but the Earth will heat up and then freeze no matter if there is a carbon tax or not. The Earth naturally goes through this process about every 11,000 years, give or take. Cows contribute 4 times the damage to the ozone layer than what humans do, but they don't want you to know this. There would be no new levies if I was Prime Minister on Medicare or anything else. No death duties. I would also change the laws so that every state in this country has the same laws and so they are not different state to state. The other thing I would promise you all is if I was going to introduce a new law, it would be voted on by the Australian people, not by Parliament. Another thing I would do is take back control of our Reserve Bank so Australians aren't being dictated to by a bunch of greedy rich people from overseas. So you can see why I've had to hide my identity, for now, as I believe a few of the things I have said might either get me jailed or worse. I will be back with another video soon. Thanks for listening.